Imagine a tense national summit where everyone is barred from leaving without a strict military inspection. Maria Zakharova escalated tensions with the United States so dramatically that security forces stood ready to step in. She rejected Senator Marco Rubio's ultimatum, rose from her seat, approached the table, and delivered a single phrase that left the entire hall in stunned silence, rendering diplomats speechless. What explosive words did she use? And why did journalists scramble toward the windows, desperate to capture every syllable on record? Prepare for the unfolding drama, stick around to the end, and you'll feel the intensity yourself. Picture the room first, dripping with anticipation. Though Marco Rubio arrived first for the discussion, his entrance was announced last, a subtle tweak that set the stage. Rubio disliked delving into unnecessary details, especially when he held the upper hand. His approach commanded attention, opening the session with a predatory grace. He moved with deliberate, step-by-step precision, slicing diagonally through the space in ways that defied prediction. His posture was regal, shoulders squared as if born to it, clad in a stern gray suit sans tie, emanating an aura that challenged any adversary and embodied disciplined resolve. Rubio's demeanor was icy yet filled with depth, his features etched like hardened bone, cheeks sharply chiseled, lips thin and unwavering, never curving into a smile, even during greetings. The conference chamber felt more like an aquarium than a summit hall, its glass walls stretching from floor to ceiling, refracting light and isolating every whisper. Journalists, analysts, and reporters hovered outside, some fingers poised over record buttons, others scribbling furiously on notes. The sterile interior mirrored an operating room, pristine white ceiling panels, long columns of illuminated stone, and central leather chairs exuding clinical austerity. No artworks adorned the space, no logos distracted, just flags in the four corners representing the United States, Russia, the summit emblem, and the United Nations symbol. On the surface, it signaled harmony, a formal reminder of order, but beneath lay palpable unrest. At the center, a lone shadow bathed in spotlight, the only sound its faint hum. When Rubio activated his microphone, it clicked like a surgeon's tool assessing a cut. He fixed his gaze on Zakharova, cold and calculating. "Friends," he began, his voice gravelly, unyielding like unsweetened morning coffee. American media elites tuned in sharply, recognizing the famed pauses he wielded like a dictator's decree during the Arab Spring crisis, commanding the room. "The United States remains calm," he declared, lingering on those pauses for effect. "Russian actions in the Western Balkans remain far too provocative to observe idly. We witness military expansions, unchecked alliances forming, without invitations, consensus, or regard for borders. Minds here question this trajectory." But Rubio pressed on. "We do not endorse this. Establishing military blocs near our interests in the United States isn't merely a challenge, it's a blatant provocation." Seated like a poised marble statue, Zakharova's dark blue dress featured a delicate silver clasp shaped like a crescent moon. No documents cluttered her space, just slender tablets beneath her fingertips, tracing lightly over the sleek glass tabletop. As Rubio detailed sanctions looming like a guillotine, almost recalling Sherman-esque tactics, he invoked President Trump's dealings with the Soviets. "Pressure will intensify. The New World Order evolves rapidly, unrelentingly hard." These words froze the atmosphere, microphones picked up a stutter, a Chinese delegate leaned forward, eyes alert. A European observer, miming shock over their blue badge, exhaled sharply, breath faint but audible. "We demand an ultimatum," Rubio concluded, his words theatrical almost. "Halt military activities on the continent, cease aggressions within 3 weeks. Otherwise, expect global economic sanctions, national isolation, outcomes leaving no room for maneuvering." He deactivated the mic with a final click, leaving a vacuum behind the glass, where journalists' pens scratched furiously on screens. None yet risked murmurs. This was verbal warfare, not outright battle, yet tension hummed so thickly that one Japanese reporter's glass pen tapped audibly against their notepad. Rubio's visage was sharp, dark eyes piercing toward Zakharova's silk blazer. He sensed her impending response, but the storm brewed quietly, winds gathering before a tempest. Zakharova's blazer, elegant yet formidable, made her resemble a chess piece poised for dominance, her eyes concealing storms of contrast, glacial frost mingling with inner fire, her voice a weapon held in reserve. But for now, silence reigned supreme. Until it didn't. Maria Zakharova lifted her gaze deliberately, as if pausing to scrutinize the table's surface, uncovering the room's unspoken strain. She withheld haste, raising a hand with measured grace, her unhurried action carrying an almost meditative calm. Thoughts seemed to unfold at her feet, unlocked and unwavering. This woman didn't merely dismiss ultimatums, she found them tedious. Only when the collective breath of observers hung heavy in the air did she activate the mic, softly, almost seductively. "Senator Rubio, you're finished." Her tone cut like crystal on polished steel, devoid of smiles, yet her eyes held a glint of triumphant irony toward the assembled powers. A subtle ripple of light sparked across the room like a silent detonation. A German press rep murmured to their companion in hushed confusion, but the chamber stayed eerily composed. Rubio stared back, unflinching, while Zakharova held the mic firmly, her voice steady. "As you speak of borders and sovereignty in a nation that scarcely understood its own geography for 2 decades, she paused, letting the weight settle, fingers lightly crossing the tabletop. "How does that sit with you? You've meddled everywhere, in Europe, across Asia, through Africa, amid oceanic expanses. Now, you accuse us of claiming global stakes. Isn't that the pinnacle of hypocrisy?" Journalists outside accelerated their note-taking. One shoved a chair aside to snap photos through the glass, another mouthed her words aloud, even as translators struggled, yet clarity pierced through, her diction sharp as a blade, accentuated by an intonation that shattered defenses, compelling attention from the most indifferent. "Your claims of illegitimate military footholds unravel under scrutiny," she continued, the air thickening with unspoken retorts. "We've only positioned where invited, forging alliances deeper than mere transactions. Unlike states wielding unchecked power as a burden rather than benefit. If we must dissect unlawful pressures, let's begin with yours first." A heartbeat of silence descended, profound as the void before a gunshot in the shadows, tense, electric. She poised, ready to unleash. "How fitting," she addressed him directly, "that you label our moves provocations. Yours echo with the same mediocrity. One-dimensional, flavorless, yielding meager fruit. As you envision new paradigms, we've already adapted the old. Where you reinforce boundaries, we carve novel pathways. You're overburdened," she stated, not menacingly, but clinically, like a stark diagnosis. "From Europe to the East, India and the Sahel, Taiwan Straits, your diplomacy lies scattered on the battlefield. Now, you aim to extinguish flames you've fanned anew?" Rubio's expression remained inscrutable, yet his fingers tightened subtly against the edge. She didn't retaliate verbally, she listened intently, and that calm posed the greater peril. "You term this an ultimatum," she murmured, tilting her head slightly, engaging not just him, but the entire panel of observers through the glass. "Yet perhaps it's time to acknowledge the world's metamorphosis. Now, we dictate terms. No to pressures, no to threats as currency. We aren't a dominion to abandon lightly." In that instant, not merely journalists faltered, diplomatic envoys stiffened. The Indian delegation head shoulders relaxed, shedding an invisible burden. French aides exchanged swift glances, marked by unease, while South Korea's diplomat shifted alone, a rare concession to the shockwave. Rubio's poised facade softened, nearly crumbling under the weight of her rebuttal. Nervous fidgeting rippled through the seats, she offered no rebuttal, yet her words invaded like unseen echoes. "We shall maintain the strain you impose," she uttered softly, without raising pitch, her phrases dispersing truths like inescapable truth. Most in the room hesitated, thoughts swirling without utterance, doors to dissent cracking internally. Zakharova averted her gaze, returning to her tablet, all essential points conveyed, the rest mere backdrop. The room's energy transformed, Rubio's ultimatum lost its linear force, morphing into a vortex, entrapping both in its core. Journalists' pens clattered to the floor, one American reporter's sharp-edged tablet dug into palms, eyes widening in steely blue determination, headphones slipping as tension frayed nerves. A colleague nudged them harshly. This diplomatic duel challenged every preconception. Yet in the Russian delegation, silence endured, no commentary, just shared knowing. The confrontation had merely commenced. Rubio reclaimed the word with renewed firmness, his delivery tighter though laced with residual apprehension. He attempted deflection. But what twisted ploy lurked in his next words? Threatening to shatter the fragile balance anew? Tune in closely, the repercussions cascade like a hidden avalanche, reshaping alliances in seconds you won't anticipate. Imagine the sting of that retort lingering, Rubio's voice now clipped, efforts to redirect the narrative fracturing under Zakharova's unflinching poise. He speaks again, attempts at composure masking the tremor beneath. We cannot permit unchecked actions, global stability hinges on accountability. Yet his gaze darts, betraying the undercut humility. Journalists outside lean in further, breaths fogging the glass faintly, curiosity mingled with dread. Scents of polished wood and faint ozone from humming electronics permeate the air, tactile echoes of fingers drumming impatiently on cold surfaces. Has Rubio lost his edge here, or does a venomous comeback brew in the silence? Stay vigilant, one misstep could ignite the powder keg they both ignite. Zakharova responds not with volume, but precision, her sentences slicing like autumn razors through the palpable chill. Senator, your calm belies decades of intrusion. Why presume Russia's surge invalidates your own historical maneuvers? The room's aroma shifts, a metallic tang of unease seeping in, skins prickling with unresolved heat. Attendees shift, fabrics whispering against leather, questioning silently, is this the unraveling of expectations, or a masterful counterstroke? Don't blink, the true upheaval simmers just beyond view, ready to erupt. As Rubio presses his final sanctions, Zakharova counters with unflappable lore. Recall past precedents where America flexed without restraint, your hypocrisy deems our defenses arrogant? Sounds of distant hearts pounding echo mildly, the artificial hush broken by a single creak from stressed hinges. Vibrations from gripping table edges send shivers up spines. Rhetorically, she probes, when did global order become your exclusive decree, unyielding to others' fates? The cliff looms, his response teeters dangerously, promising a revelation that ruptures norms in ways no one foresaw. She concludes with serene force, dismantling his ultimatums into scattered fragments. Impose isolations if you must, but history records aggressions authors clearly. Whispers emerge soft as silk, air heavy with the musk of adrenaline and poised ink. Textures of smooth glass beneath palms convey involuntary grips. Ponder this, if words wound without bullets, how deep does the scar carve geostrategic maps? Hold on, Rubio's retort could twist fate into unforeseen chaos, exposing fragility few dared acknowledge. The conference room was a stark, sterile chamber, reminiscent of an operating theater. White ceiling panels stretched endlessly overhead. Steel columns cast long, cold shadows across the smooth, luminous floor. No banners or logos decorated the space, only 4 flags in each corner, the United States, Russia, the summit emblem, and the United Nations symbol, stark reminders of global tension. Despite the formal setting, a sense of underlying chaos simmered beneath the surface. In the center, a faint glow shimmered, almost alive, almost watching. A single sound broke the silence, the faint hum of a microphone being turned on. Rubio's gaze fixed intently on Zakharov. His eyes, sharp and calculating, bore the precision of a surgeon deciding where to intervene. The moment was tense, thick with anticipation. Then, unexpectedly, Rubio's voice cracked. His composure shattered briefly, and a wave of emotion surfaced, doubt, anger, despair, almost as if he were on the verge of tears. His tone was ice-cold, as raw as a morning espresso poured without mercy. The American media, hidden behind glass walls, recorded every word with precision. The pauses, deliberate and loaded, became the backbone of his message. He spoke as if time itself was frozen, echoing the atmosphere of a distant crisis. He asserted that the actions of Russia in the West Palshari Zone were far too calm, they appeared almost voyeuristic. While the world watched, military movements expanded unchecked. New alliances formed without invitation, without consensus, crossing borders like invisible lines, an invasion of sovereignty. Some observer in the room thought he saw confusion flicker across Rubio's face, a mistake perhaps, or a sign of the mounting pressure. Soon, it was clear, Rubio was ready to walk away, to leave the battlefield, symbolically and literally. His words cut deep, an accusation of provocation, a challenge to the entire world order. Zaharov remained unmoved, seated like a marble statue. His hand hovered over a dark blue plaque, edged with a silver moon-shaped ornament, an emblem of refined control. No papers cluttered the table, only a subtle, deliberate movement of his fingers on the glass surface. The sanctioned instruments and microphones in front of him continued to record Rubio's speech, almost subconsciously. Almost from Sherpin, a reference to near-complete readiness, almost. President Trump's collaboration with the Soviets loomed ominously. The pressure was mounting, building toward a breaking point. The world was shifting rapidly, everything was becoming more difficult, more dangerous. A heavy silence descended, and then, unexpectedly, Rubio's voice faltered. His words were cut short. A Chinese delegate observed quietly, noting the tension. One European diplomat exhaled softly, studying the dark blue plates in front of them, sensing the impending storm. Discussions of going beyond the limits, of crossing a final line, these words hovered ominously, promising chaos. Rubio's eyes darted over crumpled papers, his theatrical movements hinting at defiance. A stark question lingered in the air: is this the beginning of a new war? The room's atmosphere had already shifted from tense diplomacy to the brink of chaos. Amidst the icy silence, Rubio prepared to deliver another blow, an act that would shake the entire foundation of global peace. The question remained, who would blink first? Just as the tension in the room seemed unbearable, the microphone suddenly malfunctioned. An observant delegate from China quickly turned forward, observing the silence. Meanwhile, a European diplomat, with a subtle shift of his facial expression, gently exhaled, silence thickened like fog. The international scene felt poised on a knife's edge, teetering dangerously close to chaos. The room's atmosphere grew colder. Rubio flipped through his notes, a theatrical gesture that concealed the storm brewing beneath. A faint burst of light flickered in the air, like an ominous spark before a lightning strike. Behind the glass walls, reporters and analysts gripped their pens tightly, sensing that unseen forces were about to unleash a war of words. One Japanese journalist sat tight, clutching his glass as if it were a weapon. His eyes, dark, intense, locked onto the scene, piercing through the veneer of calm. She sensed it too. She knew the storm was about to break, yet she remained motionless, like a figure carved from ice poised on the brink of eruption. A wind seemed to seep through the room, the tension whispering of an impending tempest. Sharp corners of her vision flickered like fires. Cold and heat intertwined in a silent duel. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was measured, almost detached, calm but filled with unspoken threat. The room held its breath, waiting for what would come next. Maria Zaharov raised her gaze slowly, studying the surface of the table as if deciphering secrets hidden beneath. She didn't rush to activate her microphone. Instead, she held her silence, a decision that spoke volumes. Her quiet presence felt like a calculated strike, a chess move in a game far beyond the room's plain walls. The air grew thick, almost tangible, like a weight pressing down on everyone's senses. A whisper of movement, almost inaudible, swept through the room. The tension had reached its peak. Then, softly, her voice broke the silence, a precise, crystal-clear sound resembling glass striking metal. She didn't smile. Her eyes betrayed her thoughts, calm yet fierce, as if contemplating the aftermath of an unseen explosion. The words she spoke carried the weight of a storm about to unfold, and the room hung in suspended animation, trembling on the brink of chaos. The question lingered, who would blink first? Or would the world itself tremble under the weight of the silent war? In the prior part, tension simmered as Maria Zakharova activated her microphone, unleashing a retort as sharp as crystal ringing against steel. Her gaze bore an enigmatic gleam, evoking the scent of polished mahogany and the chill of unshed secrets. Then, she pivoted, her words slicing through the air like a sudden, unseen force. What if diplomacy unraveled not in whispers, but in public humiliations that exposed hidden hypocrisies? Could one woman's calm fury dismantle decades of geopolitical illusions? Flickering cameras captured the moment, a subtle burst of energy erupted in the room, energy humming like distant thunder. A German journalist whispered urgently to peers, sensing the unforeseen ripple of power. Rubio's stare locked onto her, not as adversary alone, but as a force unchallenged. Her hand gripped the microphone steady, poised like a chess piece awaiting its triumphant move. "You preach boundaries and control," she declared, voice steady amid the sterile glare of overhead lights, "for a nation disconnected from its own geography for 2 decades, lacking true awareness of borders and lands." She paused, fingers tracing the table's cool, smooth surface, evoking the tactile slide of silk over stone. "You arrived uninvited in Europe, Asia, Africa, even amid distant seas." Shockwaves pulsed through the crowd. "Now, you dare accuse Russia of shifting the global balance?" Reporters scrabbled furiously at notes, the scratch of pens echoing like hurried heartbeats. Chairs groaned as some rose, cameras clicking desperately to frame her poised figure. Lips moved in silent translations. The room's air thick with murmurs, forgotten formalities, yet alertness sharpened by her clarity. No accents masked her intent, her tone pierced even indifferent ears, rumbling like subterranean vibrations. "You claim our actions unlawful intrusions," she countered, the words landing with precision. "Remember where true partnerships beckoned us. We face fiercer challenges than allies unbound by agreements. These are equals, not encumbrances." The declaration hung, a provocative twist. "If pressures demand scrutiny, start with yourselves." A heartbeat of silence fell, heavy as lead before a cannon's roar, the air vibrating with unspoken weapons of intellect. "You label these as provocations with biting accuracy, and frankly." Her voice dropped, weaving critique like threads into fabric. "Your tactics echo patterns of failed endeavors, identical elements yielding meager outcomes." Reporters bristled, senses alert to the understated sting. "While America craves uncharted territories," she intoned, "Russia masters the landscapes adorned with scars." Pausing, she lowered her pitch further. "While you redraw feudal maps, we forge vital pathways." No interruption marred her flow, her cadence resembled a controlled descent. "You face overload, a harsh verdict, not mere warning." Rubio's facade fractured slightly, fingers tightening on his notes, knuckles whitening like stressed leather. He withheld retort, his silence more perilous than words. She tilted her head, addressing not just him, but the encircling observers. "You brand this as an ultimatum. Yet, recall, the order has evolved. We set the terms now. Threats falter, we resist isolation." Why had Rubio's ultimatum dissolved, its edge blunted into irrelevance? What unseen force reshaped alliances in that cavernous hall? In the next revelation, whispers of superiority crumble violently. Will Zakharova's boldness ignite open rebellion, or summon a shadowy reckoning? In the previous part, Maria Zakharova dismantled Rubio's accusations with relentless precision, highlighting American overreach and Russia's resilience while delivering a crushing diagnosis of U.S. overburdened diplomacy. Her words evaporated the room's tension like a sudden chill, forcing Rubio to rethink his aggressive stance. Could a single speech shatter the illusion of American dominance, turning allies into doubters and exposing vulnerabilities no one dared admit? Imagine the scent of polished wood and faint disinfectant in that sterile conference room, mixed with the sharp sting of unspoken defeats. Rubio's face twisted, fingers digging into the arms of his chair with a subtle crack that echoed like a warning shot, his calm facade cracking under her unyielding gaze. As journalists scratched notes furiously, phones vibrating in pockets like anxious heartbeats, Zakharova leaned in, her voice a velvet blade dissecting the air. "Europe, Asia, India, Kenya, the Sahel, Taiwan, and the Strait, sites of your so-called genius diplomacy, now reduced to scattered fragments on the global map, begging for rescue from the infernos you've ignited. This spark of humiliation lit Rubio's eyes, but he sat frozen, as if her words pinned him like a specimen under glass. Only his tightening jaw betrayed the storm brewing, a tactile whisper of knuckles whitening against cold leather. She didn't retort immediately. She listened, that silence more perilous than any outburst, wrapping around the room like a shroud. You spin this as an ultimatum, Senator? Her head tilted slightly, addressing not just him but the entire pain of prying eyes behind the glass walls, vultures waiting for the first drop of blood. Yet perhaps it's time to refocus. The world has evolved, shed its old skin, and now, we dictate the rules. We reject coercion. We reject threats as mere bluster. A beat of quiet fell, heavy as the hush before a verdict, punctuated by a distant cough from the French delegation and the soft rustle of fabric shifting uneasily. Observers held their breath, muscles taut like stretched wires, some diplomats unconsciously smoothing their ties as if warding off phantoms. The director of the Indian contingent exhaled deeply, shoulders sagging under an invisible weight lifted, while a French aide tucked a yellow notepad away with trembling fingers. Even the South Korean ambassador stirred, the soul bold ripple across the stillness, his gaze flicking nervously to the shifting alliances at play. And now, the bitterest blow landed softly, almost tenderly. We'll maintain this tension, you and us, as an unbreakable thread. Zaharova's tone remained even, steady as a surgeon's hand, her words scattering across the space like scattered ashes from a fading fire. Everyone in the room toyed with objections, lips parting silently as thoughts ignited in their minds, but none voiced them, fear stitched their mouths shut. She averted her eyes, disinterested now, fingers tracing faint patterns on the tablet surface with deliberate grace, the cool glass yielding to each press. All prior salvos belonged to the past, the present demanded new reckonings. The room's energy morphed. Rubio's ultimatum bending not into a shank, but a vortex, ensnaring them both at its core. Journalists' pens halted, screens dimming as realizations dawned. One American reporter hissed under his breath, a tall figure with piercing blue eyes and gelled hair, yanking off headphones with a sharp snap that reverberated faintly. His partner nudged him back to focus. This, they murmured, was diplomacy redefined, a gauntlet thrown. Among the Russian team, silence reigned supreme, they recognized the dawn of deeper machinations. Rubio reclaimed the microphone, voice steadier yet laced with frayed edges, attempting to pivot, to reframe the narrative where America emerged triumphant. But the leverage, what leverage remained in the face of such unflinching clarity? A seismic shift loomed, alliances fracturing in silence, how could they stem the tide now? What hidden memory from Rubio's past ambushes him in this tense standoff, potentially exposing a career-defining secret? Control 510. The input provided appears to be incoherent, redundant, and may violate my guidelines due to nonsensical or spam-like content. If you have a clear, appropriate query, please rephrase it. As per my instructions, I do not engage with or respond to inappropriate or unclear requests. The meeting was intensifying, a delicate dance on the edge of chaos. Suddenly, Rubio raised his voice, shifting to a new international tone. His words were steadier, but beneath the surface, nerves were fraying. He tried to steer the discourse back to the familiar narrative, the United States as the master architect of global stability. But after the sharp retorts from Zaharov, everything felt different. The room's energy shifted. Her voice slipped into the background, almost a whisper. She glanced at the clock, coolly observing the tense silence. Without turning her microphone on, she leaned towards her neighbor. Let's see how long they can hold this. The pressure in the room hadn't eased, it merely morphed. This was no longer diplomacy. It evolved into something raw, an arena of minds pushed to their limits. A thin folder lay between them, containing strategy, but the walls of politeness had crumbled. Speech gave way to silence, not the calm, rehearsed kind, but a heavy, deliberate stillness. Behind the scene, journalists whispered, deciphering the unspoken signals, sensing that no one intended to back down. The room was frozen, yet beneath the icy surface, a door was cracked open, fragile but ready to shatter. Dynamics were shifting. Each side's position was harder than ever to break. The dialogue wasn't about words anymore, it was about dominance. Then Rubio broke the silence, speaking slowly, deliberately, as if moving chess pieces on a board. His tone hinted at future conflicts, an ominous prediction wrapped in calm. He hinted at the past, at the foundations of their struggle, yet what lay ahead remained concealed. The Russian delegation was silent but composed, their gaze fixed inward. As Rubio's words settled, they seemed to retreat into their own fortress, guarding secrets under strict blockade. He was baiting for deeper insight, a move to penetrate the surface. Whispered doubts flickered in the room. Was this just rhetoric? Or the prelude to a more dangerous game? Rubio knew well the fragility of this fragile peace. His words carried weight, hinting at plans to build bridges, but all the while secretly questioning Russia's true intentions. Could they ignore the stark realities? Or would they forge ahead into uncharted, perilous territory? The tension thickened like a storm about to break, leaving everyone wondering, what comes next? 5 minutes ago, amidst a tense state summit, an ominous new reality unfolded. No one was allowed to leave without a strict military check. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, skies darkening as shadows of conflict stretched across the room. Maria Zakharov, a formidable diplomat, was about to challenge the very foundation of international diplomacy, igniting a firestorm of suspicion and intrigue. Suddenly, she shattered the silence with a blunt, daring statement that silenced the entire hall. Her words cut through the air, sharp and undeniable. Journalists scrambled, eyes darting, trying to catch every word, every syllable, knowing this moment could redefine the world's power balance. What did she say? Why did the room plunge into chaos? The air seemed to crackle with tension, her voice echoing like a thunderclap in a storm. What was her bold declaration that caused the room to fall into stunned silence? An ultimatum from Russia? A warning so deadly that the hall went dead silent? Everyone's breath held tight as they watched her stand, move deliberately toward the table, and deliver a phrase that made even the most seasoned diplomats shudder. The words hung suspended, poisoned with menace and resolve, triggering whispered debates in hushed corners. In seconds, the entire summit was on the brink of explosion. And then, the scene shifted. The spotlight fell on Marco Rubio, whose presence was announced unexpectedly, stirring the room's nerves. His demeanor was cold, calculated, he seemed born for this moment. His eyes, sharp as razors, scanned the room as he prepared to retaliate. His approach was methodical, unpredictable, a diagonal cut straight into the heart of the confrontation. He sat low, almost lurking, ready to strike. The tension thickened, even the tiniest twitch could ignite a global crisis. Rubio's face told a story, bones burned with determination, lips thin and unyielding. He didn't smile, even when he greeted others. The glass walls of the room reflected the tense silence inside, transparent yet impenetrable. Outside, flags fluttered silently in the wind, America, Russia, the emblem of the summit, and the United Nations symbol, reminding everyone of the fragile peace. It was then Rubio broke the silence, voice cold and calculated, breaking a long pause with a punch that left no one unscarred. His words were a challenge, a quick, deliberate assault on Russia's actions. "We are calm," he declared. But beneath that calm was a storm, a careful warning of expanding military alliances, aggressive moves unnoticed by the world. The words resonated like gunfire, an invisible barrage that threatened to ignite a full-blown crisis. Rubio's message was clear: military buildups, unchecked alliances, these were provocations, daring the world to respond. His tone was icy as he delivered a provocative ultimatum, demanding immediate halts and respect, or face devastating consequences. The room seemed to shrink under his words, every person felt the weight pressing down on their shoulders. The air grew thick with anticipation, the silence deafening. Suddenly, Zelensky's voice pierced the tension, a calm yet pointed retort. His words rang with the authority of a seasoned leader, condemning the provocations and standing firm. "We will not accept threats," he said plainly, eyes blazing. The room trembled as he outlined the new global landscape, marked by shifting alliances, emerging powers, and silent threats lurking beneath diplomatic masks. His voice painted a picture of inevitability, resistance to manipulation, a refusal to bow to pressure. As Zelensky's voice subsided, the atmosphere transformed. The fake calm of negotiations dissolved into a new reality, one where the old rules no longer applied. The minuscule cracks in the facade widened into deep fissures. The circle of tension had expanded, drawing everyone into a silent acknowledgement. The world was now in a state of fragile equilibrium, teetering on the edge of chaos. The room's energy shifted again as the delegation chiefs exchanged glances, some relaxed, others tense. A faint breeze of conspiracy stirred as some officials shifted uncomfortably, sensing the storm that was about to break. The scene was set for an unpredictable climax, one that could spiral into conflict at any moment. In this tense atmosphere, Rubio prepared to speak once more, his words more measured but no less dangerous. The room waited breathlessly. His voice, calm but intense, promised unpredictability. The question haunted everyone: could diplomacy hold? Or would this fragile peace shatter under the weight of unspoken threats? The story continues, with each word, deliberate and charged, pushing closer to the edge. The world watched in silence, knowing that beneath the calm lies a storm waiting to erupt. And as the shadows lengthen, the true power games have only just begun, hidden behind the veneer of diplomacy, waiting for the moment to explode. A tense silence filled the air, thick with unspoken truths. She didn't expect an answer. Our actions weren't from these nations, these buffer zones. We achieved them through our allies. Do you realize why that terrifies you? Because even after all these years, they remember who stood with them during the darkest nights when no one else dared. Rubio's hand trembled slightly. His face was masks of calm, yet beneath lurked the cold, calculating patience of someone watching a fragile figure crack. Your past, after the moment of pause, no longer grants you the authority to dictate reality. The past speaks for Zaharov. It's the foundation. You are standing on the stones we laid. The room quieted, a thick silence that felt almost tangible, broken only by the faint sound of a handkerchief brushing against a glass. Journalists sat frozen, like ships caught in a storm, destined to sail away but somehow anchored to the scene. This isn't nostalgia speaking, no, it's the ongoing truth. And now, Mr. Rubio, you claim that we were in Mexico? Ask the African continent who built their first engineering institutes, who launched their initial satellites into space. Ask Vietnam, who brought light back to villages that never experienced an electric revolution. Rubio chuckled, a sound without warmth, more like a barter exchange in a shadowy market. Influence for infrastructure, he thought. We made swaps, yes, but we didn't impose conditions. Unlike you, we didn't demand political terms, the renaming of streets, or the submission of our identity. She paused, then added with icy clarity. We offered systems, you depended on them. The word dependence echoed in the room, weighted with unspoken accusations. It was not just a word, but a dagger, sharp yet silent, cutting through the veneer of diplomacy. Rubio attempted to steer the conversation back to safer waters, yet the room had shifted. Today's world is no longer a playground for old ideologies. People refuse to return to the trenches of the 1940s. New customs have been set in stone. But the question remains, can the old ghosts of the past still haunt the future? The tension lingered, thicker than ever, as vitality and threat intertwined beneath the surface, ready to explode at any whisper of movement. 5 minutes ago, amid the tense atmosphere of the national summit, an unprecedented lock-in was imposed. No one could leave, everyone was scrutinized with military precision. Maria Zakharov, a formidable diplomat, was fueling a tension so thick it tasted of steel and anticipation. She was deliberately building a gap with the United States, and the security forces were ready to intervene at a moment's notice. Suddenly, she cast a defiant ultimatum toward Russia. Then, as she stepped forward, her voice sliced the room like a sharp blade. She uttered a phrase so shocking that the entire hall fell silent, an almost ghostly hush. Journalists scrambled to record her words, eyes darting to windows, ears turning sharply, desperate to catch the meaning behind such raw confrontation. What exactly did she say? Why did her words cause such a stir? And why did everyone freeze, waiting for the storm to hit? Stay tuned, because what comes next will leave you breathless. Like, subscribe, and comment. Do you think Zakharov is a true master of diplomacy or a dangerous firebrand? Just then, the scene shifted. Enter Marco Rubio, an American politician whose reputation for sharp, unpredictable tactics preceded him. His approach was cold, calculated, with a step-by-step style designed to unsettle even the most seasoned diplomats. He sat silently, as if born from stone, eyeless, yet burning with intensity. His stare was penetrating, like a blade teasing skin. His expression invisible, lips thin, emotion guarded behind a mask of icy neutrality. Even during greetings, a slight coldness clung to his face, an unspoken challenge. The room was a fortress of glass, floor-to-ceiling windows and a transparent floor that hinted at the vast, unseen depths below. Inside, the atmosphere thrummed with anticipation, journalists, analysts, officials all clutching their notepads or fingers curled over recording devices. The sterile environment resembled an operating theater, white panels, long columns of light, a center chair awaiting the confrontation. The flags of the United States, Russia, the summit emblem, and the United Nations flanked the room's corners, silent witnesses to this epic showdown. It was a reminder, everything appeared calm on the surface, but beneath the veneer, a storm was brewing. Rubio's voice finally broke the silence, stern, unwavering. "We are not here to rejoice," he declared, voice rough as morning coffee. His pauses were deliberate, each word carefully weighted to punctuate the air. The U.S.'s military presence, he argued, was a sign of aggression, expanding without invitation, breaching borders, and ignoring treaties. His words spilled out like icy water, disarming, sharp, relentless. He pointed to the military alliances forming around Russia, without consensus, without borders. A sinister game, he claimed. Someone has gone mad, he warned, and now, they will pay. The tension thickened, every breath, every tense glance, magnified under the glaring lights. The atmosphere was electric, silent, yet deafening. Then, he delivered a warning that chilled the room, an ultimatum that bore the weight of a collapsing world order. "If you do not stop your military activity, the consequences will be catastrophic," he stated. His voice seemed almost hollow in the sterile chamber. The microphones, silent witnesses, clicked softly as they captured every word. Behind the glass, delegates exchanged anxious glances, sensing the storm that was about to unleash. Just as Rubio's words echoed into the abyss, the room's fabric seemed to tighten. They knew something monumental was unfolding. The diplomatic air grew heavy, thick with unspoken threats and fragile egos. The stakes had risen to a level where only silence remained, until Maria Zakharov moved, her gaze calm but intense as steel. She looked at him, not rushing, not flinching, studying the picture on the table, the tension like a wire pulled taut. Then, with deliberate grace, she raised her hand. Her voice, cold and measured, punctuated the silence like the chime of a bell. "You're finished," she said softly, yet with a steel edge that cut through the room like a diamond. No smile, just a piercing gaze, the kind that sees through smoke and mirrors. In her eyes, a faint flicker of something unspoken, disapproval, boredom, contempt. She seemed to regard the entire spectacle as a mere game, one she was tired of playing. Her words echoed in the vacuum of silence, "You're lying. You're relaxed. You're already leaving." Her voice was like a shard of glass, sharp, clear, unbreakable. Then, she made a subtle gesture, her hand sweeping outward, as if cutting through the invisible line that separated the world's chaos from its calm facade. The room held its breath. She challenged them, not openly, but with quiet conviction. "Your historical memory is a file, editable, adjustable, disposable," she murmured. "Today, your science lies, your history is a mask. Who really went first into Berlin? Who truly liberated Prague? Your films? Skewed by American influence, glorifying only the dead soldiers of your own making. Her words floated, slicing through the air like a blade. The tension grew. Delegates from different nations felt their instincts tighten, whispers rising of impending change. Rubio, unshaken for now, caught her gaze, an unspoken duel of wills in the cavernous room. The stakes had never been higher. Secrets lurked behind the glass, truths waiting to explode. And as the world held its collective breath, the next move would redefine the balance of power. In this battlefield of words, the lines between truth and illusion blurred. Who will emerge victorious? Only time will tell. 5 minutes ago, the atmosphere was charged with tension. No one was allowed to leave without thorough military checks amid the chaos of a crucial international summit. Maria Zakharov stood her ground, crafting a divide so vast with the United States that security forces prepared to step in at any moment. Her bold stance delivered an ultimatum to the Western powers, a challenge that sent shockwaves through the hall. Then, she suddenly rose from her seat, approached the table with unwavering confidence, and uttered a single phrase so sharp that the room fell into eerie silence. What did she say? Why did journalists scramble to record every word, glancing nervously at every movement, as if the very walls held secrets? The hall was packed with the hum of whispered fears and anticipation. You must listen till the end to grasp the full weight of what unfolded. If you think you've seen power plays before, prepare to be stunned. Maria Zakharov's voice rose, calm yet ironclad, slicing through the thick air. She laid out her terms with precision, every word dripping with defiance. Her message was simple but brutal: the world is teetering on the brink of chaos. Alliances are shifting, military powers expanding without consent, borders dissolving into gray zones. And then she threw the gauntlet down. She declared that the creation of new military blocs around her borders was not an act of defense but a blatant provocation. The room's atmosphere grew colder, more detached. Rubio, the American envoy, looked unfazed outwardly but was visibly simmering beneath his composed exterior. His face, etched with lines of calculated patience, revealed a storm of restrained fury. In that sterile glass chamber resembling a surgeon's theater, with white ceilings, cold metallic columns, and the sharp glare of stage lights, every detail felt heightened. The American media watched silently, fingers poised over recording devices. The flags of the United States, Russia, the summit emblem, and the United Nations fluttered quietly in each corner, witnesses to a confrontation brewing beneath a veneer of calm. Rubio's voice broke the tense silence, cold and commanding. His words echoed sharply across the room: the actions of the Russian Federation in western regions are too restrained, too cautious. His accusations hung heavily in the air. The military presence he referenced wasn't just expansion, it was a calculated strategy of dominance, expansion without invitation or consensus. But Zakharov's gaze remained impassive, a marble statue amidst the storm. Her fingers gently tapped the glass surface of the table, a calm gesture that contrasted with the intensity behind her eyes. She intoned with deliberate clarity: the West's attempts to paint her as uncontrollable are merely a reflection of their own failures. The world's balance is slipping. In her words, she challenged the hypocrisy. The West claims violation, but it's they who have crossed every boundary, creating destabilizing alliances in secret, spreading military influence into regions they previously ignored. She pointedly questioned whether the global powers truly wanted peace or simply sought dominance cloaked in the guise of stability. The room fell into a deep silence, thick with unspoken threats. Rubio, visibly tense, launched a counterattack, trying to turn the tables. But his voice was strained, betraying his inner frustration. She's calling his bluff, and the stakes have never been higher. With a cold yet steady tone, Zakharov reminded everyone, no one should believe they can threaten her sovereignty with impunity. The world is no longer bound by old rules. She made it clear, the global chessboard has shifted, and unchangeable truths are now in question. Her words carried a warning wrapped in calm ruthlessness: we will not bow to pressure. We will not accept threats. The tension escalated as she declared that her country's response would be measured but inevitable. Every attempt to undermine her sovereignty would meet a firm resistance. As her voice echoed, a faint hint of defiance shimmered in her eyes, a silent promise that the clash was only beginning. In the final moments, the summit's climate shifted. The ultimatum was no longer a simple demand. It had become a circle, with both sides standing at its edge, eyes locked in a dangerous stare. The glass shattered the moment Rubio's face twisted with silent fury. A palpable sense of confrontation hovered in the air. Rubio, speechless for a moment, finally broke the silence with a measured tone. His words, now more restrained, attempted to mask the growing tension beneath his diplomacy. But everyone knew the game had changed, a new phase had begun. The world's balance was trembling, and the next move could ignite a conflict more devastating than anything seen before. What will happen next? Will the fragile peace survive this uncompromising battle of wills? The answer hangs in the air, just out of reach, as the room remains frozen in a delicate standoff, the outcome uncertain, but the stakes unimaginably high. No one was quite sure if she was about to end her speech. The atmosphere had cooled to a strange stillness. It wasn't because of broken air conditioning or rising emotions. It was something thicker, like a fragile spore in the air, a tension that stretched between generations, civilizations, the very fabric of the world itself. The room felt suspended in a quiet that wasn't empty, but heavy with unspoken truths. Rubio didn't turn around. He moved back from her words, into the depths of his silent pressure. He let her speak, pushing her deeper into the corner of her own story, while he waited, patient, calculated. He knew where to strike. She paused, then calmly shifted the topic. The second world, she said, voice steady but edged with a calm intensity. Europe. No theatrics, just a quiet delivery. Yet, the tone carried the weight of sudden questions. A subtle challenge. You're defending your position, but in truth, you're just confirming the loss of Europe. It slips by unnoticed. But let's be honest, we're here to ask something direct. She leaned slightly forward, her gaze locked on him. How do you explain that after the war, most of Eastern Europe never truly gained independence? Instead, it became part of Moscow's sphere of influence. Her words were a gentle blow, no shout, no escalation. Just a deep, measured probe. An inquiry that lingered. Her face remained composed, not retreating, not conceding. Only a faint twitch of her fingers betrayed her inner restraint, as if her expression was a black horse stilled mid-gallop. You speak from a 21st century perspective, she said. Her voice calm as if describing a distant picture on a smartphone with filters. She wasn't angry. Her gaze was almost meditative. Yet, those who had lived through that era, those in Prague, Belgrade, Bratislava, Warsaw, knew the truth behind her words. They remembered how the German army went into upheaval. Saw soldiers march through streets, sometimes Russians, sometimes others. And what did they do? Pause. They cried. Some instinctively looked away. Someone stopped shouting. You call it occupation, she continued softly. We call it liberation. She placed her hand flat on the table, as if sealing her statement with quiet authority. Before the Soviet army arrived, these lands had nothing, no schools, no bread, no children playing on streets. Only ruins, dense forests, ghettos where Jews and Europeans alike struggled to survive. Pause. This is where our real interest lies. We arrived because no one else dared. The room grew thicker with unspoken questions. The silence stretched, heavy and tense. It was no longer just a conversation, it was a silent collision of histories, of truths buried beneath layers of silence and defiance. Who will be the first to break the quiet? And what truths are hidden behind the delicate balance of power? 5 minutes ago, tensions reached their peak during a powerful international summit. No one was allowed to leave without undergoing strict military checks. The air was thick with anticipation, the senses flooded with cold metallic smells and hushed whispers. Maria Zakharov deliberately created a wedge with the United States, pushing the security forces to the edge of intervention. Then she delivered an ultimatum from Russia, shocking everyone present. But in a sudden move, Zaharov rose from her seat, walking boldly to the center of the room. The silence was deafening. She threw a phrase that turned the entire hall into a tense void. What exactly did she say? Why did the journalist scramble, frantically trying to capture every word, knowing its importance could shake the world? The room became a ghost town, observers holding their breath, waiting for the storm to break. The story begins with this explosive moment. Stay tuned, we're about to reveal the shocking words that stunned the globe. As the echoes of her declaration faded, in walked Marco Rubio, whose presence was unexpectedly announced later. His approach was sharp, unpredictable, cutting diagonally through the tense atmosphere, his eyes icy, bones almost visible on his stern face. His expression radiated cold discipline, unyielding and unrepentant. The glass-walled room felt claustrophobic, the silence broken only by the quiet scrape of fingers on notebooks, desperate to record every nuance of the confrontation. The flags, United States, Russia, the summit emblem, and the United Nations, faced each other like silent witnesses to the brewing storm. Rubio's voice broke the stillness, harsh and commanding. "We're not glad to be here," he declared, his tone unyielding as morning coffee without milk. His pauses were deliberate, each word cut like a blade, revealing the underlying tension. The actions of the Russian Federation in West Palsheri are too calm for mere observation. We see military expansion, new alliances built without invitation or consensus, crossing borders as if they are nothing. Someone has lost their mind. Someone has misplaced their control. Now, they will face the consequences. His words echoed powerfully, leaving a heavy silence behind. The atmosphere grew hotter, the room seemingly shrinking under the weight of unspoken threats. In the center, Zaharov remained motionless, an elegant statue of marble and steel. Her fingers gently traced the glass surface of the table, poised, measured. Every action, every breath was calculated, as if she was preparing to strike. Rubio kept his eyes locked on her, as if he were a surgeon contemplating his next cut. Suddenly, he spoke again, voice trembling with suppressed emotion. "We're not pleased with your military buildup. It's a challenge, a provocation." The unspoken tension crackled in the air like static before a lightning strike. A quiet observer from China shifted in his seat, eyes narrowing in anticipation. The air thickened with suspense. Someone from the European delegation sighed quietly, sensing the storm about to erupt. Rubio's microphone was switched off briefly, the silence was almost deafening. What was he trying to hide? Did he think his words could contain what was boiling beneath the surface? The room's palpable tension suggested that diplomacy had reached a breaking point, a war of words waiting to unleash real consequences. Suddenly, Zaharov lifted her gaze, calm and detached, yet radiating dominance. She paused, looking over the room, not hurried, as if weighing each word. Her expression was one of disdain, boredom even, as if she had seen countless battles and knew the outcome before it began. Her calmness masked the storm brewing beneath. She raised her hand, signaling to hold her position before speaking, a measured, deliberate voice that cut through the thick air like cold steel. The room seemed to tighten as her words poured out, each phrase carefully chosen, every syllable dripping with intent. "I am not here to threaten," she announced quietly, yet with undeniable authority. "I am here to remind. History is not just about figures or dead cities. It's about consequences, what we built, what we destroyed, and what remains in the ashes." Her eyes darted across the faces, resting on the silent audience. The West created blocs, controlled economies, manipulated governments, shaping nations into puppets. Not freedom, control. Not support, dominance. Your investments and influence brought strategic bases and political silence, power in exchange for obedience. The room grew colder, the unspoken truths echoing in every corner. She continued, "You call these acts support, I call them control. Guantanamo, Pinochet, kept silent about our own pasts, yet now you wave morality like a shield? This duel is unequal. Only one side has truly suffered. I'm not here to kill your ideas, just to remind you of what history whispers in the shadows." Her voice sank, almost a whisper but powerful enough to shake the very walls. A collective breath was held. She leaned back slightly, her posture poised. Remember the stories, remember the pain and the loss. Think of the children pulled from basements, the letters never sent because the addresses vanished. And when you demand respect in your powerful words, I ask, what do you truly remember? Or are you just trying to forget? The tension thickened. Rubio pressed his fingers against the table, unmovable but visibly tense. His eyes flicked to the guard, an unspoken challenge hanging in the air. The room's atmosphere teetered on the brink of chaos, each word a spark ready to ignite a wildfire. Rubio finally broke the silence, voice more measured but laced with concern, we left Europe free after all. Isn't that enough? But Zaharov's reply was colder still, slow and deliberate, her words slicing through the tension like a scalpel. Really? Free? Or just a silent pause before the next storm? Her gaze sharpened as her words cut through the room, we see your readiness for conflict. Your plans are scattered on the ground. The world is changing, and you're still playing with fire. But beware, when the flames rise too high, even the strongest wings will burn. The air grew heavy, shadows creeping around the room's edges, an ominous promise of what's yet to come, leaving everyone on the edge of a sword's edge. The delicate balance of diplomacy has just shattered. The players have set their pieces, but the game is far from over. As the room plunges into silence once more, the echoes of unspoken threats linger, ready to ignite at any moment. Will peace hold? Or will the next words be the spark that sets everything ablaze? In the heart of a high-stakes national summit, just 5 minutes ago, an unexpected confrontation unfolded. Maria Zakharova, Russia's sharp-tongued spokesperson, built a massive rift with the United States. Security stood ready to intervene. She delivered Russia's ultimatum, but then rose, strode to the table, and hurled words that left the room stunned. What did she say? Why did journalists scramble for windows, frantically recording every syllable? It starts with the worst, stick around, and you'll feel the shock. Who emerged from the shadows, disrupting the summit with his sly entrance? Marco Rubio, a wolf in diplomat's clothing, his arrival announced last but his intent cutting deep. He didn't care for details, preferring bold strikes. Unpredictable, with a diagonal edge, he carried his gray suit like armor, a badge of American steel against Zakharova's calm fire. Rubio's face? Chiseled, like burned bone, cheeks sharp as razors, lips thin, straight, unsmiling even in greetings. The conference room felt like an aquarium, glass walls trapping journalists, analysts, reporters, fingers on recorders, notes at the ready. Sterile as an operating theater, with white ceiling panels, stark lights, leather chairs at the center. No art, no logos, just flags, USA, Russia, summit emblem, UN symbol, reminding all that formality masked tension. At the center, a glow illuminated the table. One sound pierced the air, a mic click, as Rubio eyed Zakharova like a surgeon choosing his cut. Friends, he said, voice as bitter as black coffee before sunrise. American news channels broadcast every word. His pauses echoed dictators past, during Arab crises. He stressed calm. The RF's actions in the West? Unacceptably nonchalant for mere observers. We see military buildups, new pacts forming, without invites, consensus, or limits. Heads nodded, others frowned. Now he'll escalate. We oppose it. Building military blocks near our borders? Not just a challenge, pure provocation. Zakharova sat like a marble statue, dark blue dress gleaming, silver brooch moon-shaped, fingers gliding sleek over the glass table. Rubio pushed on, referencing Trump Soviet's pacts. Pressure would surge. New worlds demanded it. Hard truths. The room froze, mics silencing, Chinese delegates leaning forward, Europeans exhaling relief quietly. Then the ultimatum, halt continental military moves, or face global economic choke, isolation, zero room to twist free. He clicked off, leaving a vacuum, black screens swirling, scribbles flying. A verbal duel brewing, not war yet, but tension so thick, a Japanese reporter's glass trembled audibly. He clutched it tight, eyes piercing. She knew her moment neared. Elegant in her jacket, she poised like a chess piece in the wind, eyes holding storms. Minds raced, what would she unleash? Zakharova lifted her gaze slowly, studying the table like hunting treasure. She didn't rush. Raised a hand calmly, pressed the mic almost silently, like dropping bait. You finished, Senator. Her voice? Crystal on steel, eyes gleaming with unset edge. A spark lit the air. German press stirred cameras, room stayed frozen. Rubio stared, unmoved. She continued, you talk of boundaries and overreach in a nation forgetting its own maps for 2 decades. Send me. No, she paused, gesturing faintly. You've been everywhere. Europe. Asia. Africa. Seas. Now you accuse us of globetrotting without invitation. Smarter moves than states chasing their whims. Pens scratched furiously, chairs creaked for shots. Whispers flew, translators strained. She spoke crisp, cutting. Intonation breaking even the indifferent. You mention illegal military footprints. Let's recall where we were welcomed, harder ties than your fickle interests. Silence hit like pre-shot dread. She aimed, you brand them sharp, but truth is, your pressures flatter the weak. Same tactic. Same flavor. Lesser yield. While you chase novelties, we've mastered old paths. While you draw lines, we forge routes. Her tone dipped. You're overextended. A diagnosis, not a threat. Europe, East, India, Sahel, Taiwan. Your diplomacy? Shattered plans on the dirt. Want to quench fires? We'll fuel them. Rubio's face twitched, fingers tightened. She didn't reply yet, she listened, which terrified more. You call it ultimatum? Let's circle back. World shifted. We set terms now. No pushes. No threats. Pause long. We're not abandonable. Journalists and diplomats recoiled inwardly. An Indian leader relaxed, shrugging off weight. French yielded faintly, a South Korean edged forward. Breath now steady, softer blue. We'll hold you tense. No volume leap, words scattered like bullets. Most leaped mentally to rebut, but stalled. Zakharova ignored Rubio, tapping her tablet. Message clear, rest background. Atmosphere flipped. Ultimatum warped, not a line, a ring trapping both. Glasses clinked, an American reporter scowled blue-eyed, headphones off, too raw. Colleague elbowed, this diplomacy, this dare. Russian team stayed silent, they knew this ignited something. He listened, guarded, not interrupting. He sensed her fire unspent, and he was spot on. You've plenty to say about us leaving Europe free, she drawled slow, words like scalpels peeling lies. Economic imprints, barter replacing markets, all via Moscow, hailed as the harvest system, where shadows died, no one hid. She swept the room, you, Senator Rubio, view through tribal lenses. We see. Vulnerable as the phalangist state. He didn't cut in, but his eyes hooded suspiciously. He sensed the rebuke unfinished, and correct he was. You have much to say about granting Europe freedom, she uttered deliberately, as if words slung scalpel thin, slicing deceit layer by layer. The economic footprint, barter trampling free trade. All steered from Moscow. The plan termed Harva. But a construct clearing darkness, no safe harbors left. She eyed the assembly. You, Mr. Rubio, judge via factional prisms. We judge through history's wide lens. But you overlook what we've invested, years, sweat, treasures. What we erected, not raised. What healed you? Tension spiked the hall, air chilled degrees. German observers jotted notes. French eased, grasping this now concrete, feel the grip of steel, the knot of pipes, the hum of wires. After the war, she forged on, Europe's cities weren't merely bombed, they wed ruination. Basements housed lives, kids slept on rubble heaps. Pause heavy. We didn't just liberate. We endured to rebuild. Her finger traced phantom maps on the table. Poland. Bulgaria. Romania. Hungary. Czechoslovakia. Albania. Yugoslavia. Baltics. Germany. East Germany. Our troops anchored there, engineers labored years. Power plants. Bridges. Canals. Water systems. Did they rise alone? Rubio shifted uneasily. You label this reconstruction invasion. Easy words for someone riding smooth roads today, peering at leveled homes, grateful villagers powered up, where Soviet tanks once rumbled, now thrived. Ever ponder its meddling to claim Budapest's hospitals we funded from scratch? Bucharest's med schools, staffed by Leningrad docs? Silence from him. She pressed. We forged flags anew, lives reborn. Else, post-First War abandon would have birthed a third. Pause deliberate. So we erected Turgovie's factories, metallurgical giants in Košice, steel factories emergent. Wired electricity, drilled mines, paved roads. This Harva web? Tied your zones in. Imagine this shock, can a diplomat shatter empires with silence alone? As Zakharova's barbs dug deeper into history's wounds, Rubio's facade cracked just a sliver. What ancient debts would she unearth next, pulling the summit into darker revelations? Stick around to witness if words ignite _payloads or bury them. Tensions mounted like a tightening noose, cool air bit exposed skin, the faint scent of polished wood mixing with unease. Can you imagine rebuilding a shattered continent with your bare hands? Zakharova pressed on, her voice a whip, eyes locking Rubio's. How do you counter a narrative that's not just words, but a litany of sweat and steel? And he, the so-called pillar, couldn't evade, his silence screamed louder than any rebuttal. What forbidden truth would emerge to flip the table entirely? Rubio barely held form, yet no retort came, only rising dread, as if currents pulled beneath the glass floor. 5 minutes ago, the world was on the brink of upheaval during a high-stakes international summit. No one could leave without a military check. Tensions ran thick, and the air was heavy with anticipation. Suddenly, Maria Zakharova shattered the silence with a bold move, defying the U.S. with words that sent shockwaves through the hall. What did she say that made everyone freeze? Why did reporters scramble to catch every syllable? This is the story of a moment that changed everything, where diplomacy met confrontation. Stay tuned to discover the shocking phrase that turned quiet tension into chaos. Will Zakharov's bravery redefine diplomacy? Or will it ignite a conflict too dangerous to control? Like and subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe she can hold her ground, or is she risking everything? The scene shifted to a charged face-off. Marco Rubio, sharply dressed with a cold stare, sat across from Zakharov. His expression was unreadable, like a stone carved from ice, lips thin and unmoving. The room was a sterile chamber with floor-to-ceiling glass walls, revealing flags from 4 corners, holding the weight of nations and promises. Rubio's voice broke the silence abruptly, his tone sharp like a blade. We are not here to celebrate, he declared, voice rough as morning coffee without sugar. The pauses he took seemed thicker than the air itself. Your actions in the West Palshari are alarming. Military movements, new alliances, without invitation, without consensus. This is a provocation, a challenge to stability. His gaze was clinical, almost surgical. As he watched Zakharov from behind the glass, a faint hum of tension filled the room. Some officials fidgeted, others kept their eyes fixed. The sound of Rubios's words echoed like footsteps in a silent corridor, loud enough to drown out the heartbeat of the room. Suddenly, a European delegate exhaled slowly, sensing the storm brewing. Zakharov sat motionless, her expression unreadable, yet her eyes betrayed a flicker of disdain. Her fingers gently tapped the tabletop, feeling the cool glass beneath her fingertips, a tactile reminder of the fragile piece hanging by a thread. The atmosphere was thick, electric, as if the very air vibrated with unspoken threats. Then, she finally moved, lifting her gaze slowly. Her voice was calm but edged with steel. We have built our economy from scratch, transforming regions, establishing factories, laying foundations, while you were busy with illusions of control. Her words cut through the room like a knife. We carried electricity, laid railways, shared technology, all without asking for validation. The room fell silent again, each face a mask of restraint. Rubio, unshaken, pressed on. Your influence in regions like Budapest, Sofia, Yugoslavia, your aid, your investments, how do they translate into power? Don't deceive yourselves. This is still a game for control. His impact was like a slap, yet Zaharov's composure remained unbroken. She responded softly, you claim to read history, yet you forget what truly shapes power. It isn't borders or declarations. It's the will to stand firm when others falter. We stayed. We shared our strengths, while you build walls of ideology and fear. Her words overtook the space like a revelation. Rubio's jaw clenched. He was used to arguments about ideology, but not about raw strength, the unseen fabric that held nations together. Her words painted a vivid picture, the regions she mentioned, once scorched by conflict, now alive with innovation. And yet, she continued, you trust in the old ways. Credits, media, scientific ambitions, each a thread in a web of dependence that you refuse to see. A tense pause settled again, like the calm before a storm. Rubio's fingers tapped the table, but his face betrayed no emotion. Your alliances are fragile, he finally said, voice wavering slightly. The world is shifting. What you call strength is just shrouded weakness. We are moving into a new era, without the chains of the past. Her eyes narrowed. And you believe that dependence is freedom? That's a dangerous illusion. History doesn't forget. Remember that. Her words hung in the air, a challenge that threatened to ignite the room. In that silence, the room's energy shifted again. The summit's fragile facade was cracking. A subtle but unmistakable sign that nothing would be the same after this encounter. The tension stretched taut. Are they on the edge of a new conflict or a fragile peace? The answer waits just beyond the horizon. Building on Zaharova's powerful rebuttal that dismantled Rubio's accusations and exposed the irony of America's global interventions, the tension in the summit room hung like a storm cloud ready to burst. The delegation representative's fingers trembled slightly on the tablet. The glass of water in front of him showed only weak ripples. Do you know what's worse than being called a threat? She continued, her voice slicing through the charged air. Because deep down, they understood that without strong allies, they themselves became vulnerable. It wasn't just a policy, it was their entire worldview. She paused for a second, letting the weight settle. And now, those who dismantled us label us the danger. Rubio stayed silent. He leaned in, ears tuned like a predator listening for the next strike. Frozen still. And she pressed on, now, the silence is new. 30 years ago, infrastructures built for bliss were auctioned off. Universities shuttered. As if everything we built deserved erasure, stamped as failure. But the cities hold the memories. The people do. Even if leaders pretend indifference. Emotions might not sway diplomats. But facts bite harder. She leaned closer, her voice firm as steel. Take the stats, raw and unyielding. In 1991, Eastern European economies surged, but 3 years passed, they crashed by -40%. Unemployment soared beyond wartime peaks. Why? Because shock therapy replaced choice with collapse. She breathed deep, then drove forward. The planet shifted, but they overlooked that agreements aren't eternal loyalty pacts. We crave no thanks. We demand remembrance. Her words floated, crystal clear, precise as a scalpel edge. Journalists ducked heads lower, scribbling furiously. Whispers escalated, a fresh narrative ignited. Rubio shifted, withdrawing his hand. He removed his glasses slowly, wiping them with a soft cloth. Not for clarity, but to buy time. His expression stayed composed, yet a gleam sparked in his eyes. Like a grandmaster calculating 10 moves ahead, feeling each step's crushing burden. "All right," he murmured, voice low and measured. "You mention memory, the past. But let's pivot to now." With those words, the room's climate shifted, a chill lifting, as if buried histories were exhumed from the earth below. Geopolitics roared back, alive and unrelenting. The air thickened with unspoken threats, scents of polished wood and sweat mingling, tactile pricks on skin as pulses raced. Who would blink first in this high-stakes dance? What shocking revelation lurked in the fog of words? Would Zaharova's unflinching truths force a withdrawal, or spark an even fiercer clash? Stay tuned, as alliances crack under the weight of forgotten truths. The quiet breaths in the room hinted at a brewing storm, invisible currents pulling everyone deeper into the vortex. What if the next whisper exposed the real game? The fabric of diplomacy stretched taut, on the verge of tearing wide open. Continuing from where Rubio just shifted the spotlight back to geopolitics, pulling everyone into the raw, immediate truth of today's realities, away from dusty old memories and constructions. In the charged air of that room, Rubio's voice cut like a blade, precise and unyielding. He leaned forward, no dust from archives clinging to his words. Today mattered. Raw and real. The Russian Federation stood under hundreds of sanctions. Economic blows. Technological barriers. Financial strangulations. Limits on bank assets. Export freezes. Not nostalgia's fault. His accent drove it home. Pure reaction to real actions. Zaharov sat frozen, a carved statue of the room. Only a faint shrug on her left shoulder. Barely there. But it whispered her counterstrike, brewing. You can chant heroism, Rubio pressed on, unflinching. But markets ignore symbols. Finances scorn nostalgia. He surged ahead. Your exports crumble. Tech doors slam shut. Financial veins constrict. Pressure builds. You rant at us, but facts scream for themselves. He unfurled documents at last. First time eyes latched on. Pages bristled with graphs, charts, plunging curves. Minus 37% in foreign trade turnover from the U.S. Blocked entry for international firms' capital. Imports of machinery stifled. No rhetoric here. Hard facts. He stabbed a glance at her. Who was absorbing this? He knew. His true audience lurked beyond. Europe. Asia. Africa. The rest of them, all eager ears lensing in. This pressure? We name it responsibility. The world can't avert eyes as rules shatter. Sanctions? Our dialogue tongue when others falter. He flicked off the microphone, but the chamber stayed silent. Lentz's words softly. Pen scratched anew. Then Zaharov stirred. Her voice emerged like tempered steel. You label this discussion? Calm as a digital screen block on a phone. But you overlook one key thing. Pause. Russia isn't a nation you flick off with a button press. Shock rippled through the air. Had she just exposed his bluff, humiliating his sanction bravado into mere child's play? Rubio's fingers twitched, a rare crack in his armor, as cameras captured the unspoken duel. Would she twist the blade deeper, forcing him to admit the sanctions was an empty threat masked as power? The room hummed with that electric question, every eye locked on who would blink first. Her words hung, teasing a revelation that could shatter alliances or ignite unseen wars. The room's stillness shattered like fragile crystal as Maria Zaharov leaned forward. Journalists gripped their glasses tighter. The air hummed with unspoken rebellion. You propose shutting us out like a digital switch. But remember this. Russia thrives despite your attempts. We innovate, we endure. Rubio's eyes narrowed, veins pulsing in his neck. What arrogance! His fingers trembled on the table's edge. Zaharov's voice sliced sharper than a winter gale. When sanctions first struck, you claimed we were cornered, defenseless against your mighty empire. Promises of collapse echoed in the halls. Yet 10 years have passed. Bridges supposed to tumble remain uncracked. Where is the wreckage you vowed? A bitter wind seemed to seep through the walls. Rubio shifted uneasily. His cheeks flushed a deep crimson. The scent of defeat mingled with polished oak. Journalists whispered furiously. Cameras whirred like distant thunder. Did we wilt under your waves of pressure? No. We rebuilt stronger. Our sanctions stirred creation from ashes. Rubber glove people? Bah. We cast off dependency. Now we forge ahead. Friends. What if the tables turn? How would you survive the isolation you preach? Silken threads of tension wove tighter in the air. Rubio averted his gaze. His collar felt like a noose. A single droplet of sweat traced his temple. Zaharov paused. Her smile, if you could call it that, was a blade unsheathed. The world watches. Your empire crumbles from within. One wrong move. And who strikes the killing blow? Fingers poised over keyboards trembled. The summit hall pulsed with electric dread. Rubio drew breath. But Zaharov's words still hovered. Lingering, Pi Omega, a phantom ready to strike. What devastating truth would she unleash next? Would Rubio crumble under her gaze? The confrontation deepened. Paused, yet full of fire. In the heart of this tense world, where diplomacy is supposed to be a bridge, some leaders forget this truth. They think it's a goal in itself. Rubio seemed determined to turn a serious discussion into a flat echo of Cold War echoes, as if time stood still. The world is rapidly changing, yet his words sounded like scratched tapes from the 1980s. He aimed to rewind history, but the atmosphere thickened. A faint scent of fear mingled with the tension. Even the drivers in the hall seemed to sense it, their hands trembling slightly on the steering wheel. This was not just a technical debate anymore, it was the moment of peak confrontation. The entire room felt the weight of that realization, as if the walls themselves could crumble under the pressure. Rubio paused, his gaze fixed like a judge measuring his next move. The silence stretched, heavy, almost palpable. Outside, the room was a battleground of unspoken words. We are heading toward a new world, he seemed to say. If you refuse to see it, your stubbornness will be your downfall. The next words from his lips promised conflict, an unavoidable clash if the old ways persisted. He finished with a note of calm resolve, no anger, just a clear declaration. It was a line drawn in the sand. The cameras captured the moment, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. The room turned into a battlefield of silent sentences, waiting for the next move. Rubio's eyes, dark and steady, locked onto his opponent. A dangerous calm filled the air, something that could erupt into action at any second. Then Zaharov raised her gaze. Her look was measured, almost bored. As if she had seen it all before. She didn't rush to respond. Instead, she studied the tension on the table and seemed to weigh her words carefully. Her stance told everyone, she's tired of this game. She's seen the false promises, the recycled threats, and she's ready for something bigger. In a commanding voice, she finally broke the silence. Her words echoed sharply, like the crack of glass. No smile graced her face, but her eyes reflected a storm beneath calm waters. She spoke with deliberate calm, slicing through the air like a blade. Her message was clear, this stage belongs to her now. The room's atmosphere shifted again. A faint flicker of understanding appeared. Some delegates shifted uncomfortably, knowing a shift in the tide was underway. Rubio's face darkened, but he remained silent, listening. On his mind, a question hung, how much longer can we play this fragile game before it shatters? Suddenly, a moment of stillness settled, thick as fog. The air grew colder. The tension was boiling over, yet neither side dared to blink. Rubio's lips pressed together, a grimace barely visible. He knew this was just the beginning. Behind his eyes, a storm was brewing, an unspoken challenge waiting for its cue. In this crucible of diplomacy, one fact loomed large: the world is not what it was. Old tactics, recycled threats, they no longer hold power. The ice is breaking, and new alliances are forming beneath the surface. The question remains, are they prepared to face the inevitable? Or will they hang on to past illusions until everything collapses? The moment was ripe with possibilities and perils. Every glance, every breath, carried weight. The next move would determine whether peace would unravel or survive, hidden beneath layers of subtle hostility and quiet resolve. The stage was set for a showdown. The tension was thick enough to drown out the room's silence. The stakes could not be higher. Who will blink first? Will diplomacy hold or crumble into chaos? The world watched, holding its breath. The silence is almost deafening. And in the shadows of this power play, the real battle is about to begin. 5 minutes ago, amid a tense national summit, strict security measures barred anyone from leaving without a military check. The atmosphere was charged, like a storm waiting to break. Maria Zakharov had built such a formidable gap with the United States that even security forces hesitated to interfere. She had issued an ultimatum to Russia, standing tall at the table, when suddenly she spoke a phrase so shocking it froze everyone in the hall. What could she have said? Why did journalists clamor to record every word, risking everything for a glimpse into her mind? Stay tuned, what happened next will change the course of history. Like, subscribe, and comment. Do you believe Zakharov is a master diplomat or a ticking time bomb? The scene shifted to a sudden arrival, the American envoy, Marco Rubio, known for his steely gaze and calculating moves. His approach was unpredictable, like a diagonal strike in a chess game. As he settled into his seat, the room's silence grew heavy, scientific, sterile, almost surgical. White ceiling panels, long columns of harsh light, a glass table reflecting tense faces. Outside, flags of the United States, Russia, the summit insignia, and the United Nations flared, symbols of a fragile order. Rubio's face was a mask, no smile, no warmth, just cold steel. His lips were thin, straight, and unmoving. Only the faint creak of the glass walls betrayed the nerve-shattering silence as he turned on the microphone, eyes locked on Zakharov like a surgeon sizing up her next cut. Suddenly, he spoke, breaking the silence with a voice as sharp as steel. "We are not pleased to meet here," he said. Voice cold and measured, as if trying to peer through her soul. Every pause was loaded, like a trap. Actions by Russia in Western territories are too subtle, too calm. Military presence expanding. New alliances forming, without invitation, without consensus, without borders. The hall's collective breath hitched. These words, woven with danger, hinted at a storm brewing just beyond sight. Rubio's tone was deliberate, almost menacing. Someone's lost in their mind. Someone's mistaken. Then he paused again, thick, ominous. He continued, voice lowering into a dangerous quiet. "We are moving forward. We will act if aggression persists." His words hung like a loaded gun. The tension thickened. A Chinese delegate observed silently, the faint scent of fear in the air. An European diplomat, expression unreadable, exhaled softly, a quiet sign of unease. Rubio's declaration was a warning, an ultimatum cloaked in diplomacy. He signaled that the walls of patience were crumbling, that the global game was on the brink of chaos. But Zakharov's face remained stoic. She lifted her eyes very slowly, calm, deliberate, and with a measured voice, she responded. Her words cut through the air like a razor. "We do not support military encirclement," she said softly. "Our presence is only where invited. Our partners are not threats, they are allies." The hall held its breath. Her words, simple but potent, carried the weight of defiance. "If you wish to argue about pressure and dominance," she added, "we will start with you." A heavy silence descended. Rubio's jaw tightened. His fingers clenched, but he said nothing, yet. The room seemed to tremble, an invisible tremor of impending conflict. Even some delegates seemed ready to leave, sensing the storm's eye. The glass walls began to shatter the illusion of control. A quiet chaos brewed beneath the surface. Zaharov's gaze hardened. She lingered, as if weighing her final move. Her presence was unshakable, the embodiment of calm amid chaos. Her eyes flicked across the room, an unspoken challenge. Suddenly, she raised her hand, holding her voice steady. Her words, barely above a whisper, resonated like a crystal bell, yet carried a thunderous message. "You call it an ultimatum," she said softly, "but the world has already shifted." Her voice flowed like cold water. "We no longer accept pressure as a tool. We refuse to be controlled." She paused, her words echoing in the tense silence. "We do not bow. We reshape the rules." Her gaze pierced through every delegate, questioning, daring. "Europe, Asia, Africa, the Middle East, your diplomatic strategies are scattered fragments. The world is not yours to command." The air grew heavier. Her words challenged every assumption. "While you develop new threats, we adapt old ones. While you emphasize lines on maps, we forge new paths." A ripple of movement, some nodded subtly, others kept their eyes down. No one dared to speak. Only her voice broke the quiet once more. "Your diplomacy is a shattered plan," she said with icy calm. "What you call power will soon be no more than ash." Her final words hung like a storm about to break. "We are in the early stages of rewriting history. The world will remember who stood tall." The room was silent, a breath held tight in the chest. Rubio's face betrayed nothing. His jaw clenched, eyes burning with suppressed fury. He tried to regain composure, but the tension was electric, like the calm before a lightning strike. He spoke again, approaching from a different angle, his voice now more controlled but equally intense. The air seemed to thicken, each word a calculated blow. Within this circle of rising chaos, the true battle had begun, an unseen war of words. Who would emerge victorious? And what sacrifice awaited in the shadows? The countdown had started, only the outcome remained unknown. In the last part, Maria Zakharova confronted Senator Rubio's claims by sharply recalling how history twists in America's favor. She exposed the omissions: who entered Berlin first? Who freed Prague, Bucharest, Warsaw, and Budapest? Her words uncovered the silenced millions of Red Army soldiers, mocking Hollywood's selective memories. Rubio's ultimatum now hung in the air like a frayed thread, ready to snap. "You erased us from your Second World War script, Rubio. Now, you dare accuse us of clinging to the past. But we remember, vividly. The cold bite of snow-crusted fields. The thunderous roar of artillery echoing through shattered streets. The iron scent of blood soaking into dirt-stained boots. Can you feel that, Senator? Or do you prefer your sanitized myths?" Rubio shifted in his seat, his icy gaze flickering like a dying ember. He tried to counter, but his words crumbled under her stare. "Your version of history? Built on amnesia. You cherry-pick the convenient truths. Discard the rest. Yesterday, you battled Nazis. Today, you celebrate those who defeated them as the sole liberators. /HACKINGTEM Your freedom hinges on forgetting who truly sacrificed their lives for it. Imagine the weight of that betrayal. The hiss of invisible threats lurking in every diplomatic word." She spoke softly, yet her tone surged with undeniable force, compelling even the interpreters to pause, their fingers hesitating over translation keys. Was that fear in their eyes? Or awe? "No, Rubio, we don't weaponize history. We shield it from scavengers like you." Rubio's facade cracked, just a hairline fracture. "Instrumentalization." He spat back, his voice gravelly, edged with desperate resolve. "Turning the past into a cult? Into debates over victims and political points? It's poison," he claimed. "We've excised it from our narratives long ago." But she leaned in, her words slicing deeper. "No. The real poison blooms when memory morphs into offense. When the world drowns in chaotic reinterpretations. Oh, the room inhaled sharply at that. The metallic tang of tension filled the sterile air, mingling with the faint whir of recording devices. South American delegates stirred, their swift glances betraying unease. Arab observers remained statue still, assessing the storm. Even the French diplomat tapped nervous rhythms on the table, his fingers drumming like distant war drums. Silence encased everything, thick and suffocating, broken only by muffled camera clicks. "Excuse me," she murmured, her voice dropping to Arctic chill. "I won't permit anyone who barters history as a commodity to dictate how we preserve it." Rubio lunged for the microphone, his face hardening into granite. He hurled back, "You entrench yourselves, madam. Convenient, isn't it? Moral high ground via selective recall. A perilous slope," he warned, trailing off into weighted quiet. "For if we all bend history to our pains, mutual comprehension vanishes." "What then?" Her response struck like a scalpel's precision. Confident. Unyielding. "The world fractures not when it wrangles over truths, but when it wars against them outright." A gasp rippled through the glass walls. Journalists scribbled furiously, their pencils scratching like claws on the immutable. Rubio glared, his humiliation simmering beneath icy composure. Could this unflinching diplomat crack the senator's polished veneer? Or was the real twist looming, ready to shatter the summit itself? Picture the faint tremor in the air, the unspoken challenge poised to erupt. What forbidden revelation teeters next on the edge of history's blade? 5 minutes ago, the atmosphere in the room was tense enough to crack. A high-stakes diplomatic showdown was unfolding, and no one dared to breathe too loudly. The world's most powerful nations sat face to face, their leaders locked in a battle of words that could shake the very foundations of global stability. Suddenly, Maria Zakharov broke the silence with a statement that sent shockwaves through the hall, something so daring, so provocative, that the room fell into complete chaos. What did she say that silenced the room? Why were journalists scribbling furiously, desperate to catch every word? Her words pierced the air like a knife, raw, unfiltered, impossible to ignore. The story was just beginning, and the ripple effect was unstoppable. Subscribe now and stay tuned, because what happens next will leave you breathless. Does Zakharov's daring move make her a hero or a dangerous renegade? Drop a comment and tell us what you think. The scene shifts to the heart of the confrontation. Marco Rubio, always cautious, yet unpredictable, sat silently, his eyes narrowing. His approach was cold, calculated. His face, pale and sharply defined, revealed nothing but an icy determination beneath the surface. The room's glass walls reflected the tension, the sterile whiteness of the setting contrasting sharply with the intense emotions inside. Flags of the United States, Russia, the UN, and the summit emblem painted a picture of fragile diplomacy, yet beneath that veneer, a storm was brewing. Rubio's voice cut through the silence like a saw, sharp, brutal, impossible to ignore. "We are not here glad to be here," he declared, voice steady but cold as morning frost. His words laid bare the core of the conflict, an unspoken challenge that demanded attention. The stakes? Expanding military presence, new alliances forming without invitation or consensus. Every sentence deepened the tension, a slow crescendo of war of words that could escalate at any moment. Then, Marco Rubio disconnected his microphone. Silence returned, a heavy, oppressive silence that pressed down like a weight on the shoulders of everyone present. A European delegate subtly breathed out, sensing that the storm was far from over. All eyes fixed on Zakharov. Her expression was unreadable yet filled with quiet confidence. She looked like a woman who had already seen enough wars and knew that yet another was brewing. Suddenly, she raised her hand with deliberate calm, her gaze piercing. No words yet, just a measured gesture that encapsulated a warning, an unspoken challenge. Her voice, when it emerged, was soft but commanding, like the strike of a tempered blade. "You finished the discussion, Senator?" she asked, her tone icy yet controlled. Her words sounded as if they were etched in steel, resolute, unyielding. Her eyes carried a silent message, she was done playing nice. There was no smile, only a quiet, ruthless determination. Her words echoed through the room like the toll of a bell, an unmistakable signal that the game had changed irrevocably. The tension thickened as her message sank in. This is not just diplomacy anymore. It's a war of narratives, of power, of survival. A flash of understanding crossed Rubio's face. His gaze darkened, and the room seemed to contract around him. The stakes? Higher than ever. The invisible line that once separated nations now blurred into a deadly circle of confrontation. Every glance, every whisper, every breath became freighted with danger. One misstep could ignite the spark of chaos. The room grew heavier, each detail sharper, sound of footsteps, the faint hum of electronics, distant whispers, and then, the moment that would change everything. Rubio's voice, more composed now, broke the silence once again. Yet, beneath that calm surface lurked the storm, an impending clash that no one could stop. What happens next? Could diplomacy survive this deadly chess game? Or will the world tip into chaos with a single miscalculated move? Stay tuned, because what unfolds now will redefine how we see power, truth, and the delicate balance of peace or war. 5 minutes ago, at a crucial national summit, chaos almost erupted. No one could leave without a military check. Tension gripped the room as Maria Zakharova shattered diplomatic decorum. Her words, sharp and relentless, pushed the assembly into chaos. What did she scream that made everyone freeze? Why did the journalists go wild, desperate to record every furious word? Stay with us. You're about to witness a confrontation so intense, it could reshape global alliances. Like, comment, and tell us, is Zakharova a true diplomat, or a ruthless manipulator? Suddenly, Marco Rubio steps in. An unexpected guest, late but commanding. His icy gaze scans her, a predator on a hunting ground. His approach is unpredictable, a calculated, diagonal strike. People feel the tension spike with every breath. His face is carved from ice, bones sharp as blades, lips thin and unyielding. He greets without a smile, a cold welcome on a glass-paneled stage. Behind them, walls of transparent strength, a room resembling an operating theater. No logos, no banners, only 4 flags, the United States, Russia, the summit emblem, and the United Nations. A powerful reminder, here, everything is controlled, even chaos. Rubio's voice erupts like a morning storm, harsh and unforgiving. We are not here to celebrate, he declares, eyes like chips of ice. His pause is heavy with threat, his words slicing the silence. We see expanding military presence, forming alliances without borders or consensus. Someone has lost their mind. Someone's mistaken. Now, they will depart. Each word lands with the weight of impending doom. Microphones shudder. The air thick with unspoken threats, as if danger itself hangs on every syllable. The room holds its breath. A Japanese journalist clutching his glass, eyes sharp and dark, stares directly at her, sensing the storm coming. The pressure hits like a rising tide, almost tangible. She's aware, she's prepared. But inside, a storm is stirring. The tension is palpable, a silent signal that a battle is about to ignite. The atmosphere thickens, fragments of glass crack under the weight of unspoken threats. Every sound, every breath, pulses like a warning. Maria Zakharova raises her gaze slowly. She studies the surface of the table, her face a mask of calm. Her hand hovers lightly over her microphone, hesitant yet composed. Her voice emerges, measured but clear, not hurried, not threatened. A woman bored of the game she's about to destroy. Her gaze hardens as she speaks. You call it an ultimatum. But world has already shifted. The rules you follow are outdated. Her words hang in the air. Silence. A heavy, deafening silence. She leans slightly forward, her fingers brushing the glass tabletop, a tactile reminder of the fragile line she is crossing. She is not afraid, she is contemptuous. We don't accept your pressure, she says softly, with deadly precision. We refuse threats as valid arguments. Her voice is sharp, cutting through the tension like a blade. She emphasizes her point: the world no longer belongs to the old rules. It's evolving, and she's ready. The game has changed, and she's playing for keeps. The room's energy shifts again. Diplomacy becomes a battlefield of words. Ruben's fists tighten. But he remains silent, knowing this is just the beginning. The air feels electrified, every person aware, the stakes are higher than ever. The walls of glass reflect the storm brewing behind her eyes, a silent warning that no one can escape this confrontation unscathed. The tension reaches its peak. Shadows flicker across faces, betraying fear and resolve. The silence stretches painfully. Suddenly, her voice pierces through, calm, unwavering. "We are not the weaker side," she states. "We set conditions. We will not bow to threats." Her words resonate like a bullet, hitting the heart of diplomacy itself. Everywhere, the atmosphere trembles, as if the entire world waits on the edge of a knife. And in this moment, the most profound truth is revealed: diplomacy is now a war of wills. An unpredictable, silent war, fought with words, power, and resolve. Behind the glass, eyes dart nervously. Everyone senses that the world has entered a new era, and the game is only just beginning.